Hello and welcome back to the One Shot Show. We've got a couple of special episodes on the docket, and our very first one, without any further ado, we're talking about player pressure with special guest Robert Hartley. Hiya, Rob. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
I'm Matt. That's Mock. That's Rob. And we're talking about player pressure. So, first of all...
What is player pressure, Matt?
I'm glad you asked, Mark.
Oh.
I've heard of player buy-in.
Yeah, so...
Have you? I don't think we've talked about that yet.
No,
Should
we'll have to put an episode aside for that in the future, I think. So, player pressure, as GMs, when we sit down at the table to run our games, whether it's for our friends, for colleagues, for people who are paying us, whatever the circumstances may be, the players want to have a good time, and often the onus to create that good time falls on you, the GM. So there is a pressure that is created, intentionally or otherwise, by the players on the GM to make sure that they are having a good time. So what I'm keen to talk about for this episode is, first of all, how do we handle that feeling of pressure? Because it's not always founded. And then also... Rob, you've got, I think, some particular insights on this, of course, coming from your particular background. And actually, let's talk about that real quick. So, Rob, obviously, you GM for Viva La Dirt League's YouTube broadcasted game.
Correct. That's what I'm most well known for. I'm a DM in my own right. Robert Hartley GM is my brand, but then I'm a contractor with Viva to run their D&D campaigns. So that's what I'm most well known for. I've been running their campaign for about 6 years now. Well, several campaigns with them, one-shots, small shots. The one that's finishing currently that's been going for 5 years.
And we'll dive a bit more into what that was like stepping into working with Viva La Dirt League and the pressures that would have come with that. But we'll kick off with sort of your standard at-home game. If you're not, a professional running games for an established group of content creators.
Are we going to escalate across the episode to bigger and bigger games and wider audiences?
Sure. Why not?
Okay.
Why not?
Well, let's start with your first game that you're running for your friends, and they don't know anything, you don't know anything, but you all want to have fun. How do you handle the feeling of making sure they have a good time?
The way that I go about this is making sure that I'm having a good time. Because, honestly, that's why I do it. That's why I got to enter in the first place. I just want to enjoy myself. And if you're being led on an adventure by someone who's having the greatest time, it's really hard not to be infected by that enthusiasm. And there's nobody recording you.
Exactly.
There's only maybe 3 or 4 people who know you watching you. In fact, I'd say maybe the minimum amount of pressure we're about to talk about today on one of those little home games.
I also one of the things that I always try and do, and I wish I knew this when I started out, that this is an acceptable thing to just say to your players. They do want to have a good time. They're showing up wanting to have a good time. But if they're showing up going, entertain me, then I'm not interested in that. You have to show up with the right attitude, ready to enjoy whatever it is that I've prepared and put the work in for. And that's just an expectation that I put in front of my players these days because I know that, I know that I can do that and I know well enough. So I'd say that's one of the biggest ones is set the expectation with your players that, hey, you need to meet me where I'm at in terms of what I put in front of you. We can critique things after the fact, but in the moment, try to have fun with what's there.
Which is one of the biggest differences between running a home game and running a paid game, because there is a difference in the dynamic between the DM and the players if you are being paid to do it, if it's your job, if you're providing a service. If you're doing it for free with your friends, then there is no onus on the DM to be the one bringing the good time for everybody. The DM should be bringing the prepared world and the NPCs and the plots that they can possibly give out for them and, whatever it is. But it's not on them to make sure that everybody's having a good time because everybody is opting in to have a good time together and like to turn up at a certain time and play a game together and have fun.
Sounds like it's time to escalate the stakes.
That's that incredible segue, Rob. What is the difference that you've found between doing... what was it like for you transitioning from just casually being a DM into doing paid games, into doing streamed games? What things changed about the way you prepare your games and the way you deliver them?
In a private game, a home game, it's much more like you say, I'm going to focus on what I enjoy to do. Like, I'm going to focus on the world building that I get most enjoyment out of. There are other stuff I might just hand wave a bit in the moments. I'm going to set up the sorts of stories, the sorts of quests and adventure hooks and things that I'm going to be interested in playing. for a paid game, I will start off with a very in-depth session 0, even if that's not an in-person session 0, even if it's just a document that I send to them in advance, especially if it's just like a one-shot that they're hiring me for. But I will still do a semblance of a session 0 for those things. And in that, I'm asking them not only for the lines and veils and hard lines and stuff that they don't want to see in the game, but I'm asking them, what level of combat do you want? What frequency of combat do you want? How dangerous do you want your combat to be? How much roleplay do you want? How much do you want to be world exploration? And I'll ask them for like a sliding scale. In mine, I ask for a 1 to 20 because everybody knows a D20, and it's like, I want to roll an 18 on how much combat we want to have in a session sort of thing.
Lines and Veils could be its own episode as well. Session Zeros can be its own episode as well. And the really important thing you're doing there is finding out what your players' expectations are and much more
what they want
facilitating
from a game.
them.
Yeah, what sort of a game are they wanting? Because I'm not going to prepare a heist of a wizard's tower where there's like a different thing to do on every floor if what they want is a dungeon delve / hack and slash monsters going down into to slay a dragon or whatever.
Or if they wanted the Odyssey, for example.
Exactly.
Just to give an example.
Have you ever read that?
You've heard good things?
I've heard good things about the Odyssey. I really should give it a read.
Well, and I think an interesting thing here, back when we talked about, the differences in taking on paid GMing, one of the things that came up is, look, I personally am not interested in taking on the amount of pressure that you're describing because it is a different amount of pressure. And I think that's something that's worthwhile for people to keep in mind. With your home game, there is a really low pressure way to do it. And one of the steps into maybe taking on something that is, professional GMing is the willingness to take on that pressure. Because if somebody shows up, Rob, and they say, I want a heist and I want it to feel exactly like Ocean's 12, the worst one, if they're paying you the coin, you kind of got to do that, even if it sucks for you, because you hate Ocean's 12 as you should.
To a degree, though, if somebody does want me to run a particular game and I don't feel comfortable running that game, I'll tell them, sorry, I'm not your guy. There's a million other Dungeon Masters for hire out there. I like to run high fantasy sword and board Dungeons and Dragons games. I like to run heists or whatever. If somebody wants a no combat high society, Pride and Prejudice sort of a game.
Nerd.
Unlike us Dungeons and Dragons nerds. But yeah, if somebody wants a Pride and Prejudice theme thing, I'll be like, I could. It wouldn't be as good as somebody who actually cares about that stuff.
Do you find it very fulfilling to deliver something like that to a bunch of people who have specifically requested it? Like the experience of putting on a show for an audience that really likes it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I think that's one of the great things about this industry is it's so niche that, that the people here are actually caring about it. It's not people who are just doing it because, I guess I'll put on a sports game and watch that.
It's one of the things about, specifically doing specific things for paying players or games that are being streamed to an audience, for example, it becomes much more of a performance of acting and theatre adjacent as opposed to sitting around a table with your mates.
Well, Mark, it sounds like it's time to raise the stakes again.
We're leveling up!
Raise the stakes. I need a tag going across the bottom of the screen.
Do you want flaming animated text on that?
So a little, I'd love
Depends what budget we've got.
Production, you can handle that, right? So the next step up from this, obviously, we've gone from your casual home games into the paid sphere. Now, Rob, you specifically then took another particularly interesting step. I think before we actually talk about the audience pressure, you took another particularly interesting step, which obviously you've mentioned already, is a paid game for Viva La Dirt League, who by the time you joined on to run games for them were already very established and successful media personalities in the online content space.
Indeed.
So what was that like? Was that then another
not
step
only
up?
an established personalities, but an established law of the world that I was then running in, which is a unique challenge I've had to put up with. Is most DMs will be world building their own world.
I like how you said "put up with." I hope they hear that.
Oh yeah, they know. It's an interesting challenge to have to be like, okay, this is your world and your IP. If I want to come up with something, I have to go, does this fit your world? And I ask them stuff. Hey, what have you? I want to take you to this city in the next step, in the next section of the campaign. What have you got on the city? Tell me everything you've got, because anything you don't tell me, I'm going to flesh out, and then it'll become canon, and you'll have to deal with it. Much to their chagrin sometimes.
I suppose you then had to navigate some of the landscape of, put candidly, IP ownership.
Correct. Yeah, so basically in my contract, anything that I create specifically for their game is their IP. Any monsters, stats, any magic items, whatever. Anything that I've created for my own world and my own home games about like, oh, this is a house rule that I use for this thing. If I then use that in the game, that still belongs to me.
I'm
So
spotting a
pattern
pattern here that the more we're escalating, the more input your audience and your players have into exactly what you are doing.
Yes. Yeah. And I feel like that's understandable because they're paying me to do it. And there's an expectation. Starts off with the expectation of the people paying you, the players. And then, as we say, we've escalated to now you're doing it for a particular group that's making content. Now there's the expectation of what it means to make content and what's expected of that. We need to put half-hour episodes together. So in a 4-hour game, I need to make sure that there is something happening every half hour. Otherwise, we're going to end up putting out a half-hour episode that does nothing. Nothing happens in it.
Half-hour shopping episode.
Exactly.
So you used a really great term there, which is expectation. So obviously, you quite comfortably handle the weight of that expectation, given that you're still running these games for them. You haven't burnt out.
But I wouldn't say that. I'd say it's just that I'm very good at working while burnt out.
You're burned out. You're just a walking husk of a man.
You know the exhaustion levels in D&D?
Yeah.
It's the same with burnouts. There is more than one burnout level.
And if you hit 5, you die.
Exactly. I'm comfortably around 3.
Nice. So I would describe myself as comfortably a 3 as well. So I guess then the question is, what are some salient pieces of advice that you might have for anyone listening who, maybe they're only wanting to take the step up to paid games, but in terms of handling that additional expectation, how did you go about handling it? Are there particular tricks you use? Are there things that you put in place to make that easier to handle? What's some advice that you might give?
There's the first advice is that the very first all these levels build on each other. The first level doesn't go away. You still need to be enjoying it. It's still a game that you're playing. You're putting in time to do it, and you should be enjoying that. I kind of think the same for any job. If you are doing DMing for a job, then yes, it's a job, and maybe you're not going to enjoy every job you do, but you should still enjoy your job to at least a degree. And then make sure you're focused on the things you're enjoying, because as you say, somebody coming to your game is going to be able to recognize whether you enjoy the content you're making for them or not. How much you're going to get into it, how much you're going to get out of it is going to be palpable and tangible for your players to witness. The other thing is just don't put all of that pressure on yourself to be giving them the absolute pinnacle of joy for every moment of every game, because it's okay for it to just be good. Like, good is good. Good is great. Like, if they've had a good time, that's great.
It's also another salient point for that, especially when you're doing live shows, is that you are working with other performers.
Yeah.
And to bring back the word onus, the onus is not solely on you to do.
We're all about the onus.
We're all about the onus. Yeah, it's not solely on you to do that performance. And in particular with Dirt League, you're surrounded by comedians, performers who are willing to improv and give you a lot of that energy back as well.
And part of the pressure for me is to be kind of what is known as the straight man in the comedy scene, or the foil.
I'm very familiar with straight men.
And I will be like, here is the thing that we're doing. Here's the scene. Here's the absolute reality of it. I strive for like the verisimilitude of the scene, because I know that they're going to bring the comedy and they're going to bring the slapstick and they're going to turn it into.
You get to be the sounding board for them to bounce their wacky ideas off.
By the way, if you're ever listening to GM-oriented content and you hear the word verisimilitude, you have to take a shot. So, all right, it's time to one last time raise the stakes, because now we're bringing the audience into this. Because as you sort of you alluded to this as well when you were talking about live shows. Yes, you get the added benefit of working with other performers. As much as it's the players, they're still very much on your side in terms of creating this cool experience. But then the pressure starts coming from the audience instead. So first of all, what was the step up to that like? Going from maybe running paid games, but now you're running it for content in front of an audience who absolutely have opinions that they love sharing in the comments.
Well, they certainly do. It was fantastic because on the whole we have an amazing audience that is very, very welcoming of the things that we're doing and the things we're putting out, and very happy with the stuff that we're doing. Also, I'm incredibly good at my job, so they never have a bad word to say at all, ever. No, so the pressure that comes from the audience being involved is one of having to keep those lines and veils that we're talking about to a more broad standard, knowing that there's everybody watching and anything that could be. It's sort of like a censorship or like the ratings that you'd put on TV shows. I need to just be aware of if in a home game somebody really wanted to do like a political drama where you're doing something with the king of this land and the nobles and the feudal lords here and there, then that might be just boring to an audience. So you've got an implied audience pressure of like, don't have too much of that.
You're bringing up some really, really interesting points here. First of all, about the lines and veils and making sure that it's safe and comfortable for anybody from any background with any experiences to be able to come in and enjoy your content.
Yeah.
But also when you're talking about making it interesting for an audience, you are almost writing and creating a very different kind of story than just entertaining your friends. You're entertaining a much wider audiences. And you're a really good person to maybe talk about the differences between making a campaign specifically for wider entertainment as opposed to your mates.
I think that I'm in an advantageous position now that we have established, hey, look, we can do this and it's really good and it's a successful YouTube channel, and that gives us the opportunity to then start diversifying a little bit more. We've got, if you don't like this campaign and the stuff that we're now starting to focus on in this, we've got this other campaign that we're running over here, or this one-shot that we did for Halloween, or this different system entirely that's not D&D. And we can branch that out and then start to get an audience. Because I think you have to just sort of lean into making a decision early games with this of going, do we just focus on this is going to be a high combat actual play and lose all of the audience that aren't interested in that? Or do we try and keep a little bit of everything, keep a balance of there's a combat here and we've had too much combat, so now there's a bit of shopping, and we've had too much of that, so now there's roleplay and there's exploration and there's
your audience
whatever.
are kind of making decisions for you story-wise.
Yeah.
You're trying to.
And I don't think one's better than the other. It's just that you know that if you're going to focus on like me and all my players are only focused on social interactions and social subterfuge type storytelling, then that's a niche, and you might find an audience for it, but you're going to have less of an audience. You're going to have a smaller subset of the populace that are willing to watch it.
So something you're inferring there is that the smaller the group, the more weird and niche you can get with your stories.
Yeah. Kind of so.
And it sounds like we've escalated the stakes past the scope of this particular discussion, because obviously this starts to touch more on things like the content creator trap, and feeling boxed
the algorithm.
in. Yeah, in terms of the content that you can make, something that I have never experienced. But I think that's put a really nice ribbon on this particular topic. Rob, you've been fantastic to provide your very unique insight to this. Thanks very much for joining us, and thank you very much, Mr. Audience Member or Mrs. Audience Member, or
why are they all married?
What's the
They're married to each other. Mrs. Audience Members.
Our listener base is one big polycule. Did you know that?
Mrs. Audience Member's maiden name was not Audience Member. She only got introduced to it when she married Mr. Audience Member.
We got to keep that in now, don't we? Because we're out of time. That's been the One Shot Show. We'll see you in the next one. If you like what you just heard, feel free to support us on Patreon. Every little bit helps. Go to patreon.com/OneShotShow.